So during your preseason service, it's kind of a known issue with the AXYS chassis and VR1 chassis that there's been jackshaft issues. So as we're doing a preseason service, we slid off the secondary and we noticed that the bearing seal cap already came off, and you can see the rollers are completely dry. Just something, if you're servicing your sud, just take a look. And if you actually look, the bearing cage is just starting to fail. So we got to it before there was a major issue. Here's another unit that just came in the shop with another jackshaft bearing failure. As you can see, the jackshaft took some significant wear. The outer bearing plate actually took wear, and then the inner plate. And these, luckily enough, are replaceable, this cast piece. So you can just drill out a rivet, take out some torque screws, you can replace this. But this is what happens when you don't catch a failing bearing in time. So we're going to remove the bearing retaining plate here. We'll slide that out with our secondary shims. And then we can go to the other side of the chain case and just tap the jack shaft through. So to remove the jack shaft, you're going to have to come over, take your entire chain case apart. You can go in, clean out all the debris and nasty oil. You'd have to take off your rotor, your caliper, your chain case cover, obviously, chain and gears, and then you would just tap your jack shaft through the bulkhead when you have the bearing cap on the other side removed.
Actually, don't need this light, do you?
Not right now. You see that the cage, and there's actually a couple balls missing. And then we'll go in and we'll inspect the race. We'll make sure that's good. If not, they do sell the replacement cast bearing retainer. But we'll clean this one up and take a look and see if that's needed for this repair. We'd end up using the press and getting this bearing off your jack shaft, inspecting the shaft for any pitting or sculling. We'd replace the bearing. We check the bearings on the other side in the chain case if maybe there was some premature wear from the jack shaft wobbling with the bad bearing. Reassemble the chain case and test the unit. So now we cleaned up the bearing support and we just inspected all the surfaces. Everything looks good. So now what we're going to do is just insert the jack shaft through the bulkhead, get it started in your chain case, and then we're not going to fully seat it because we still have to put our top and bottom gear and chain on, then also the cover. And the way it is you have to move the jack shaft from the PTO side to the mag side in a couple different steps to get everything lined up and installed correctly. So now what we're going to do is we put both gears inside the chain and we walk the gears onto the splines on each side. We thoroughly cleaned both lower and upper sprocket. We inspected the drive chain, made sure everything was okay. And now we're just going to go ahead with the assembly. We're just cleaning the tensioner guide in our parts washer, make sure it's all clean, there's no debris. Going back for assembly. Insert the tensioner. We're just going to hand thread in the bolt just to get a little tension so nothing falls off. We'll keep it rather loose because once again we still have to move our jack shaft back and forth. So the proper torque's 29 foot-pounds. It's always good to torque your lower gear. So now once your bottom gear bolt is properly torqued, we can slide our chain case cover in. Without tightening the cover, I can have someone hold the side. And we'll just wiggle the jack shaft through the chain case cover. So now we'll just walk the chain case cover screws in. We won't go all the way tight, we'll just get them close and then we can torque them from there. So the proper torque for the chain case fasteners is going to be 12 foot-pounds. We'll just set our torque wrench. we just added a little bit of all-season grease to the O-ring to aid with installation. We'll lock that in. It slides into the groove in the jack shaft right there. And then you put the sleeve inside the chain case upper seal. You put your bearing cover plate on. Start your screws. So this cover, it's actually a conical bearing, which means it's not flat. It's like a rounded surface, and the inner and the outer are both concave pieces of metal that'll position the bearing exactly in center and where it's going to want to be. We're just going to walk the screws in. So these fasteners are torqued at 18 foot-pounds. So all three fasteners are torqued. Now you can put your secondary shims on to set your belt offset between your secondary sheaves and your primary sheaves. We'll check that once we get both clutches back installed on the vehicle. So we're just going to slide our brake rotor on the jack shaft. We're going to work our caliper into place. We're going to line up the tabs on the back side. Our jack shaft's installed. Everything on the PTO side is torqued. We're just going to put our rotor, our caliper on. We're going to add 10.5 ounces of Polaris SCL, the synthetic chain case lubricant. And then we can put our battery box, our battery, hook up all our wires, put our muffler back on, and then we can test the unit. And that's a quick lowdown on how to replace a failed bearing on a jack shaft on a Polaris AXYS or Matrix chassis.